Welcome to the Love Dog Podcast. I'm your co-host, Raina Butcher, here with our host, Dr. Sarah Hensley.
Hi.
Hi.
I've missed you.
I've missed you too.
We haven't seen each other in a while.
We haven't. I feel like we always sort of live on two different planets because we're at different points in our life. But
for sure.
And we're busy. I mean, you're
Very
doing your
busy.
thing with coaching, and I'm doing my thing with all your marketing and
everything else, basically. No, we
everything.
have Elizabeth's a great member of our team too.
Yes,
Shout out to Elizabeth.
Yeah,
She's
hey,
awesome.
Elizabeth, we love you so much.
We
You're
do.
such a good person, such a great coach.
Amazing.
So episode 20 today.
Wow.
I know.
Look at us.
I feel like every 10 episodes we need to celebrate.
We do.
And today's topic is taking back your personal power.
Yeah, because I did a TikTok on that, and it's been swimming in my head this week.
Yeah.
And of course, it comes back to the situation that I cannot fully talk about, the tea that everybody's wondering about.
Yeah.
I've had so many people be like, what's that tea? Like, I want to know. And I'm like, I just can't for so many reasons. But that situation robbed me so much of what I felt like was my personal power. So I actually went back to therapy, which has been great because it's a difficult situation. And I'm a big fan of therapy, obviously.
Yeah.
And I've come to realize that the hardest part about that situation was that it removed a lot of my personal power and control. Mm-hmm. And obviously it feels really bad when there's something in your life you don't have control over.
Yeah.
I mean, that feels bad to everybody, I think, right? Mm-hmm. To some degree. Mm-hmm. But I think that there's certain things that can happen specifically in relationships that really force people into surrendering their personal power. I don't want to say that anybody can really truly come and take your personal power. I think we often have to surrender it. I think there are very few situations where people actually come in and take it, right? But oftentimes we surrender our personal power inside of our relationships. And that creates so much anxiety, so much rumination, so much desperation. Yeah. And a lot of people identify with feeling that way in their relationships.
And a lot of people surrender their personal power without noticing or realizing or knowing that they're surrendering their personal power.
That's right. And it just really makes me think of a relationship with a narcissist or even a dismissive avoidant, because dismissive avoidants are dictators in relationships. Yeah. And I saw this video, and I want to have this guy on our podcast, the Namless Narcissit.
Yeah.
I don't know his name because he goes by the Namless Narcissit, and I think we're going to end up having him on our show. But he made this video the other day that was like, narcissists really don't desire to control you for the sake of controlling you, for you to have do something that they want. It's not about an outcome they can get from you. It's about proving to themselves that they have the ability to control you.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that's a really interesting insight that could probably only come from a self-aware narcissist, which we know is actually 1% of narcissists.
Yeah, that's what makes him so interesting.
Yeah,
he's a healed narcissist, right?
He's he calls himself a self-aware narcissist. And I find his videos incredibly insightful because there is so much debate around narcissism. There's a lot of conflicting theories. And here's the thing, because narcissists are so not self-aware, it's really hard to study them. Yeah. Right? Yeah. It's extremely hard to study them.
Yeah, you mentioned that in the episode we did, Are They a Narcissist? Because there's no self-awareness, but they're also highly manipulative. So they're hard to gather data on.
Yeah, absolutely. Like they're hard to pick out in a therapeutic setting a lot of times. I mean, but... And then one thing that I saw that also made me want to do this episode was a TikTok actually this morning that was talking about how they did this. I don't know, somebody did this study. I'm going to have to go look back at the study. Obviously, I'm going to have to find it. So just disclaimer, I haven't read the research yet. But it was this clinical psychologist who was talking about, they did this study asking therapeutic providers to provide a rating of their colleagues. Like, what percentage of your colleagues do you feel like are competent? And across the board, the average was basically 1/3. 1/3 of the colleagues that I know that are in this same industry as me, I feel are competent at their jobs. So that leaves 2/3 of mental health professionals.
That's a low number.
Incompetent. And he really focused in on the fact that therapy for a lot of people ends up reinforcing their victimhood and lack of personal power. So it was like, oh, well, my parents hurt me when I was a kid. And of course, you know, therapists are really scared to lose patients, and they're very scared to be sued, and they're very, you know, careful about what they say, and they want to be a safe space and they want to be validating. But what can really honestly happen when somebody feels like they don't have personal power and that they are a victim is they go to therapy and they're just like, I'm this awful victim and it hurts so bad, and I don't, you know, and then they're just like, yes, you are, and it's okay to feel that pain.
Validate.
Right. And what we sometimes need to tell people, which is a really hard thing, and this has come up before, sometimes you are surrendering your personal power and you are staying in victimhood.
Sometimes it's you. You're the problem.
And
it's you.
Time. It is time to take that power back.
Yeah.
And so how do we do that? Boundaries, obviously, is the first thing that comes to mind for me. Learning how to not then move forward in your life where you get into another situation where you're surrendering it because you're being controlled or being manipulated, or you're taking less than you deserve, and you're willing to stay in that relationship. So back to the dismissive avoidant, they really do act like dictators in their relationships. And it sucks because they're not bad, mean people.
Right.
It's just that they are so anxious in the relationship to themselves that they are going to put themselves first.
Yep.
Which leaves you as somebody who's surrendering your power to them. I mean, they will tell you, like, this is when we will see each other. This is how long we will see each other. This is what will happen when we see each other. This is
what we'll do.
This is what we'll do. Yeah, because it's all about.
This is when it will end. This is what I have to do after because I'm too busy.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it just makes me think about my relationship with a dismissive avoidant. And I had this celebrity client the other day, and we've talked about this. And no, I will not ever reveal who my clients are. Their information stays completely confidential. But I've had several celebrity clients, which is always fun. You know, because I'm like, ooh, I've seen you on TV, or I've seen you in, you know, a magazine, or I've seen you. And this person was honestly one of the most beautiful people I've ever seen in my entire freaking life. I was just like
just perfect in terms of
looks. I mean, I was just like, you're like a airbrushed creation in real life, you know?
You're a walking
this person
filter.
is describing her relationship with the DA, and it was exactly like my relationship with the DA, because all DAs act the same. They all freaking act the same. So predictable. It's like they go to DA university and get a degree in being the DA. And so, you know, I'm trying to tell this person, you have to take back some of this power. You have to set some boundaries with this guy who is another celebrity, apparently. I don't know who it is. She didn't reveal it to me, and I don't care. I don't need to know who it is. But I'm like, you have to set some boundaries. You have to say, no, that doesn't work for me. Absolutely not.
And if they could only realize that if once those boundaries are set, it actually makes you more attractive.
It does. To the DA, it does. Boundaries will make you more attractive to the dismissive avoidant because they subconsciously don't like your weakness.
They don't want to feel totally responsible for your emotional well-being.
That is 100%. Hit the nail on the head. Yep. And so, but of course, they're attracted to their shadow, right? So they're initially attracted to like the warmth and the kindness and the lovingness and the nurturing. Yes, and the submissiveness. But then they start to get really icked out by it after longevity occurs. And but I mean, they have such rigid boundaries. Now, there is a small subset of dismissive avoidants that are people pleasers. They tend to be women. They tend to be the women DAs that I see. And they fawn a lot. They'll go, okay, yeah, you're right. It's because they're terrified of conflict. Right? But they usually do a lot of lip service, and then their behavior is still very rigid and still, you know, like, I'm still not going to follow through. So they sort of people please with their words, but then they're still very rigid in their own personal boundaries, right? Like, no, I'm not going to call you. I remember in the relationship I had with the DA, and let me just say, Donald, I'm sorry for talking about my exes, because I know that gives him just a smidge of like discomfort, but he's learned to realize that this is part of my
It's just part of the platform.
It is. It's part of my journey.
It's part of your personal experience and your story, and you have to be able to tell your story.
Yeah. I remember of course, and DAs seek out long-distance relationships, whether they understand it or not. Subconsciously, they seek out long-distance relationships. I swear 2 out of every 3 relationships with a DA partner are long-distance that I see in my practice. And I'm like, that's freaking predictable for the DA, right? It was long distance. We saw each other once a week. That was all he was willing to give me. And we were about an hour and a half away. I always had to go down there. He would never drive to my place after the beginning of the relationship. The beginning of the relationship, he was at my house all the time.
Yep.
Then it was like, oh, I'm too busy.
Yep.
Well, what changed? Nothing except the fact that you don't have, your capacity has changed because your wounds came up and they suppress the feelings and they give you the ick and you back away, and that's what happens.
Closer.
We had gotten closer, and then that's when they back away, right? That's what happens. Yep. And I remember going down there. Do you remember this? Like I was going to have
it all.
Big conversation.
I remember. I think y'all had like 3 or 4 of those.
Yeah, where I was like, I'm going to state my needs, and if he can't do it, I'm done.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so one of the needs that I had was, I want to talk to you on the phone every day. I'm sorry, I don't want a textationship.
Right.
That's not that's not even a relationship.
No. Josh and I never text. We always call.
Yeah.
Always.
Oh my gosh, Donald and I, oh my goodness.
We'll sit on the phone when he's at work at night. We'll sit on the phone for like an hour and talk.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't imagine if we were,
I know,
it's like high school again.
Sweet.
I couldn't imagine if we were just texting back and forth.
Can you imagine?
No.
And then.
It would never work. We wouldn't be married.
And I remember he said, maybe. I can maybe do that.
Which is a fair answer. At least he wasn't saying, yes, I can, and then not following through.
Right. But then he didn't follow through. No, he didn't. He absolutely did not. The very next day, no phone call.
Yeah.
And
I can't remember. Did you walk away after that? I don't think you did. It took you a while. Did you?
I did.
Okay.
But then we got back together.
Okay.
We got back together 3 times, which was ludicrous. Listen, if y'all have more than one breakup, it ain't going to work. No.
Agreed.
I always think like it's a breakup because it's broken. There was a book a long time ago titled that, and it was a great book. I don't remember who wrote it, but it's called A Breakup Because It Was Broken.
Yeah.
I mean, secure people usually don't break up because they can work through their problems.
Yeah.
But he was such a dictator in the relationship. He dictated everything. Everything. I had no personal power in that relationship. And I would try to put boundaries in place, and then I would just let them be let them down because my attachment anxiety would come up.
But the beauty of that relationship is it really catapulted you to find more of your personal power.
And earn my security.
Yeah. And that's really what, the relationships that don't work should be. And I wish people could acknowledge that and more graciously let them go.
Right.
I think, the one DA that I sort of dated, I don't even know if I'd call it dating.
I mean, you guys went on enough dates.
We went on a few dates, and, it was like a 3-month situation, pretty much. But I had learned pretty early on, I think probably from your situation, just based on his behavior, like that's what it was. And
I was like, oh girl, he's a DA.
Yeah, I was like, oh no, I'm going to get out of this before it even gets any deeper. And it was really empowering to be able to set that boundary and just like, instead of saying, hey, this is what I need, it was just, hey, I acknowledge that he's probably not going to be able to do it. And so I'm just going to go ahead and cut this off now.
Yeah, I was really, really proud of you.
Yeah, it was hard.
I knew my DA was a DA.
Yeah.
I knew.
Yeah, you'd done enough deep diving at that point.
Yeah, I mean, I was educated on it, super educated on attachment. And I'm like, I know this is a DA, but I viewed it as I'm a psychologist, so I can change him.
Yeah.
Right?
I think a lot of people in the mental health
so much about
industry think that.
But I can change him. Right?
Yep.
And it was like, no. I couldn't because I wasn't even able to change myself at that point, which is why I always go back to knowledge doesn't equal healing. I had all the knowledge for I don't know how many years, decade or more, still wasn't healed at that point.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I did the healing that I found my secure relationship. And I look at Donald and I's relationship. It is so intimate. We are so close. He's my best friend.
You can tell him anything.
I can tell him anything in the whole world. I could tell him anything. And I don't think there's anything I could tell him where he would be shocked or he would stop loving me or he wouldn't accept me.
Right. Yep.
Right. And we always say, and Dana last week, I think really, or a couple of weeks ago when we actually filmed that podcast, was talking about how authenticity in your relationships is so important. And when we aren't authentic, we are surrendering our personal power.
Yeah.
And that makes you anxious.
Yeah.
It dysregulates your nervous system because human beings have a fundamental need to have some personal power and autonomy over their lives. And being in a relationship with somebody who's highly avoidant or narcissistic will sort of play on your insecurities where you will then surrender your personal power.
Yeah, and I think people make that mistake of teetering that fine line of being like, well, the relationship's new and, maybe if I just sit back and like give it some time, and see what happens. I mean, my only advice there is you've just got to go in firm from the beginning.
Yes.
And that's why attachment security is so important because you have that, right? You have that power in the sense of like the moment that you see certain things that don't feel good to you, you're just able to say, no, I'm good. Like I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and get out of this.
For me.
And you don't have to sit back and think like those thoughts don't flood into your mind of, oh gosh, I'm never going to find anybody else. Or you're just like, no, this isn't meant for me and something better will come along.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I say this all the time. I think the video that I did about matching energy, and there's a reason that video did pretty well because so many coaches are so, one, manipulative, two, uneducated, and they'll be like, well, just match energy. If he pulls back, you pull back. Are you going to play that game forever?
Right.
If someone's only attracted to you when you pull away, what's going to happen when you come back? It's going to be a push-pull the entire time.
No.
I
was in a relationship like that for 12 years.
Yeah.
It was awful.
Yeah. It never changes. That dynamic's never going to change.
It doesn't. It just gets worse.
Why would you want to be with someone who is only attracted to you when you go away?
Yeah. Yeah. That makes no sense. That was a good video. That was a really great video.
And so it's like, no, we're not going to match energy. We're going to exceed that energy by cutting that person off and moving on.
Exactly.
Right? So if someone starts to pull away in your relationship and it's early in the dating phase, freaking let them go.
Right.
Because, and this is what, like, again, I've said this before, but I'll say it again. I get so many people. I had somebody the other day that was like, I'm very securely attached. But I've been in this relationship with a DA for like 14 years and it's been terrible.
Like,
but I'm very secure. And I'm like, no,
you're not.
You're not.
All right.
Where have your boundaries been?
Yeah.
You've surrendered all your personal power inside of this relationship. You've allowed this person to be a dictator of the intimacy, of the level of vulnerability, of the amount of time you spend, of everything. Yeah. There is no natural reciprocation in that relationship. Like in my marriage, there is such a natural reciprocation.
Yep.
Nobody's keeping a tally of how much have you done for me or I've done for you because we are both naturally equally reciprocating. Right. And it is this beautiful back and forth. You have to think of it like a metronome, right? Or like a pendulum that's swinging. Yep. That is what a healthy, secure relationship looks like. It's you, then it's me, then it's you, then it's me. Yep. And then there are times of distress where maybe one partner will take over a little bit. Right. But that's normal. Yeah. Right? Like somebody's sick.
Yeah, you're human.
Like my gosh, my husband is coaching his son's flag football team and it's so beautiful to watch. He's such a good dad. My goodness, he's such a good dad. And he ended up getting strep throat. And he hadn't had strep throat since he was like a kid. Yeah. And he's like, how did I get strep throat? And I'm like, well, you were in the faces. Like you're bending down in the faces of these little kids who are breathing on you. It's 4 to 6 year olds. I'm like, that's how you got it, babe, right? Yeah. So he was actually the sickest I've ever seen him since we were married. And he had like a virus too. Like I think his son ended up getting hand, foot, and mouth. We think that's what it was. It cleared up really quick. So, I mean, and he never brutal. Yeah, he never even ran a fever. I think because he's older kid that got it, so it like didn't affect him. Yeah. But then Donald ended up getting it with strep throat. And he was the sickest, and my husband is like a power through type of guy. He's just like, no, I'm fine. Yeah. Like he would have to be practically dead before he would stop.
Laid up in the bed.
And he was in the bed. And we went to the VA, and we sat there because he's like, I got to go to the doctor. And I was like, oh my gosh.
Was he having trouble swallowing? And
yeah.
stuff? Oh,
yeah.
That's the worst.
And so, I mean, I'm going to pick up like the slack. Right. And he does the same for me. But for the most part in the relationship, there is an equal distribution of power.
Right. Right. Nobody's dictating everything that you do.
That's right.
Right. Sometimes you make that decision. Sometimes he makes that decision.
Yeah.
I feel like Josh and I are pretty good about that as well. Sometimes he'll default to me about certain things that deal with the house, and I'm just like, I don't know. There was something the other day he was asking where to put something, and I'm like, can you just find a spot? Because I don't like. Sometimes I don't want to make the decision. I'm like, just find a spot. Like, it's okay. But I think he thinks like, because I'm pretty OCD and pretty particular about my home, like I think he's afraid that he's going to put it somewhere, and then I'm going to be like, "Why'd you put this here?"
Yeah, and then he's going to be like,
"And this is why
I he made the wrong decision." Yeah, Donald's that way too sometimes, but and I think both of our husbands just really want us to be happy.
Absolutely, yeah.
Which is actually what makes them great leaders, because we know they have the desire to make us happy. So when they do make a decision, it's based off the data that they've collected from us, and we've had that conversation.
Yeah.
But there's still a balance of power, even though there's a leadership dynamic. A really good leader collects the data about what's going on and makes the decision that is best for everyone.
Right. And allowing, them allowing us to take leadership and us allowing them to take leadership, that's what distributes the power appropriately, right? It's because I let Josh take on these leadership roles, and then at times he lets me take them on. And so it's this beautiful balance of like, teetering this ball back and forth, like you said, that we can, both feel powerful within our relationship.
Yeah. And then there are a lot of things that I'm going to default to him to because one, I don't know anything, or two, I don't care.
It's not true. You know a lot.
Yeah, but not about stuff
psychology.
About psychology. That's not going to help me fix like the door frame that we have to replace. That's been because the gutter got clogged and whatever. There's things like that I'm like, I don't know. You're the contractor.
Right.
Like, right. Pick a door. I don't care. Any door will work. Right. Yeah. There's things and I think one of my husband's favorite phrases is, babe, I trust you.
Yeah.
Men really want to feel like you trust them.
Yeah. That makes them feel powerful.
It makes them feel so powerful. Right. And so there are so many things you can do to help your partner feel like they have their own personal power, which is allowing them to make decisions on things that they are competent about and allowing them to feel your trust and your respect for them, especially men.
Yeah.
But I love it when my husband can go, I know you clearly know more than me on this, so I trust you to make a decision.
Yeah. Yep.
And there's a lot going on in our lives right now where that's happening.
And that really shows a secure personality too, to be able to I would totally trust you on this. Josh is really great about that too.
Yeah.
To just be like, hey, it's okay. Like, even if it's something that would be deemed like manly, right? He'd be like, no, I think you know more about this. Like, we're building a new chicken coop. That's all him.
How much money have you spent on the chickens?
I know. We do have half a dozen eggs now. We have half a dozen of our own eggs, but we are about $2,500 deep. Yeah, so that half a dozen eggs cost us $2,500. Anyway,
we all have hobbies.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. But yeah, Josh is all week he's been working on the new chicken coop, and he secretly, I can tell, he just absolutely loves it. And there's been a lot of moments where he's like, come look at it. I got to ask your opinion about something, because he's doing it from no plans, right? I tried to convince him to buy some plans off Etsy. He's like, no, I don't need them. I'm good. I'm like, okay, I trust you. I'm good. And he'll pull me out there every once in a while and be like, well, what do you think? Like, should we do this? And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, I totally trust you. I'm like, this looks great. Like, just do it.
Yeah.
And I can see like how, like, he's always been like this like little like excited little teenager out there. Like,
that's precious.
Yeah. I've loved watching him build it because he's just so excited.
Yeah.
And then he claims he hates the chickens. He does not. He loves them.
Like, you better love them.
Yeah. He loves them. Yeah. He loves them. He loves the projects.
Yeah. Well, I think, having personal power in a relationship does not mean that you are controlling.
No.
I see a lot of control
Yeah.
in different relationship dynamics in the couples that I coach. And I can tell the difference between, I'm setting boundaries, I'm taking some power, like I'm asserting some of my personal power in my relationship versus I have this desire to control the situation and control you inside of the situation. And there's a total difference.
Night and day. Night and day difference.
And I have a couple of couples that I've worked with that they just cannot see how their desperate need for personal power has turned them into someone who is controlling and manipulative.
Yeah.
And I have to, as a coach, and this is what I tell people when they want to work with me. I'm like, I am brutally honest.
Yeah. I think it's something that really sets you apart and makes you as wonderful as you are at what you do.
And I tell people that up front. I said, I am not for everyone.
Right. If you can't handle
but
the truth.
I'm going to tell you, if you are wrong in the situation, I'm going to tell you. I'm not going to dance around it. I'm not going to try to tiptoe around your feelings. I'm going to say, you're wrong in the situation. You're the wrong one.
Yeah. And you're really great at, I think, too, is with being able to do it with, you do it with compassion.
I do. I say, I understand where you're coming from here, and I can totally see why you feel this way. And I know that feels really bad to you, but I need you to understand that, for example, the message is getting lost in your delivery.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And so the delivery is wrong. Your intention, I see it, but your partner can't see it because your delivery is horrible.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So let's work on our communication skills
in that
arena.
That's a great example of, being able to tell the listeners, like, this is how Dr. Hensley coaches. Like, she's taking your real life scenarios and giving you the perspective shifts right there, right then and there.
Immediately.
Immediately. Like, and saying, hey, no, this is actually what you need to do instead. Like, your delivery is wrong. Let's fix it.
Right. Where a lot of therapists, because coaching and therapy are so different. And I really want people to know that. Therapy is a lot of you digging out your own crap and coming to your own revelations with somebody that can guide you. Now, do therapists give tools? They do. Do they have healing modalities? Yes. But they're rarely as blunt and honest and direct and fast-moving as coaches are, right?
Because they have a little bit more I don't want to say to lose, because that's not the right word. They just have a little bit more liability, I think.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, people that work with me, insurance does not cover coaching, which stinks.
Yeah.
Some health savings accounts now will cover it, but
they'll reimburse.
Yeah, reimburse. But for the most part, insurance doesn't cover it. So there's a little box you check when you have any of my programs or services that says, if you don't agree with something I say, or if there's an outcome you don't like because of something I say, there's nothing you can do about that.
Right.
I'm going to tell my truth of how I see things, and whether or not you agree with it, you never have to come back.
Right.
I'm not going to be for everyone. But I am also not going to sit back and watch someone be dysfunctional and not say this is dysfunctional.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
give them tools to try to change the behavior.
And listen, there's personal power in that.
Yes. Yes.
Right? There's personal power of saying, hey, okay, I'm behaving dysfunctionally, but I can control that.
Yes.
I can make those changes. Where people don't ever really heal is when they go, but my partner, I behave this way.
That's also an example of giving your power away.
Because my partner, Right. Well, I can't really control my behavior because my partner makes me act like this. No, they don't.
Yeah.
Nobody makes you do anything. Maybe you react and you don't have the capacity to react any other way. That I'll give you.
Right.
But that lack of capacity is also lack of personal power. So in my coaching philosophy, it's all about building people's capacity to execute rational, conscious behavior instead of subconscious trauma responding. Right? And that is powerful.
Absolutely.
To know that I am fundamentally in control of my thoughts and my emotions and my behavior. Do I really want to say, no, my partner's in control of my emotions and thoughts and behavior?
Yeah.
That gives me zero personal power.
I can think about a moment in my life where I probably felt the most powerful I'd ever felt. And it was because it was such a different reaction than, one, really, that I was used to, and two, I was really shocked that I was able to do it. So just some background, I grew up in a house where we yelled a lot, right?
Yeah.
Like we my mother was what I would probably deem as an overreactor. She overreacted about pretty much everything. And she was a wonderful mother, loyal, there for everything, but she yelled, and we yelled and we screamed and we fought. And then like our patterns where we'd fight, we'd scream. They're still kind of like this with my sisters. And then we'd get over it and everything was fine. And so that was a lot of times my reaction within my romantic relationships. And so there was one instance in particular where I was dating a guy just for a short period of time. And of course, I really liked him. Really liked him. And there was some drama, I would say, that I won't get into, that doesn't even need to be mentioned because it doesn't matter. But it was one of the reasons he ghosted me. So the guy ends up ghosting me, which happened quite a few times in my dating life.
Yeah, that's happened
again, which we've talked about. Ghosting is not okay.
It's not okay, ever.
Because I would have much preferred the explanation versus just no explanation at all and just being left in the dark.
Yeah.
And so after it was all said and done and he disappeared for like 2 weeks after we'd gotten pretty close. I mean, and so I saw him out one night and he yells, Raina, Raina, from across like the street. We were at Thursday Night Live and I'm like looking around like, who is yelling my name? And I turn around and it's him. And normally like the bad Raina, I would have like turned and like flicked him off or something, right? Or like, called him an asshole or something.
Right.
But I just turned around and I saw him and I just looked at him and I went, nah.
Yeah.
And I just walked off. And after that, he sent me a message and he said, fine then, be an asshole. And I laid into that guy like no other. I put him in his place. And I don't know, like I screenshotted that message where I put him in his place because, again, the old Raina would have, when he said like, fine then, just be an asshole. I was just trying to talk to you. I would have been like, yeah, I understand that. But like, I would have been like sympathetic towards him. But given the circumstances of what played out and what went down, I was just like, absolutely not. You deserve no sympathy from me. What you did was completely wrong and terrible and cowardly. And no, in fact, you're the asshole.
Well, all right then. You took care of it.
Yeah.
Right?
And it just like, and I give that example because there's certain moments in our lives, I think, when you're trying to get to that place of achieving your attachment security. Yes, it helps to seek resources like you, but our life circumstances present opportunities for us all the time.
Oh, of course.
And so it was like this evolution process for me and that's why I say it's so important to take these relationships, like a lot of the clients that you have that come to you and they're like, well, how do I get them to? How do I get them to?
How do I get them to? How do I get them to? You can't.
Your best bet is to exert that power that that you feel deep in your gut, like trust your gut, and just say, hey, you know what? I'm going to walk away from this and let that be an evolutionary process to catapult you into this place where you can attract the right person.
That is right. Instead of trying to force someone to do something, which you can't at the end of the day. You can't. I mean, I'm always so afraid I'm going to get like a flag for saying something like this, but please don't do this. I'm not advocating for this, but you could literally hold a gun to somebody's head. It doesn't mean they're going to do what you want them to do. Right. It doesn't mean that. Right. So what are you going to do in a relationship that's going to make someone behave? Yeah. No. The only thing you can do is set boundaries. And so a lot of people are confused about boundaries, and I get that. But most people don't uphold their boundaries. They try to set them and then they let them down, right? Because they're too afraid to let go of the relationship because they have attachment anxiety that's coming up for them.
And a lot of times it's because they jump from relationship to relationship to relationship. They don't give themselves time to process what happened.
And learn the lesson.
Yes.
I had somebody the other day that was like, why do I keep picking the same people? I'm like, you haven't learned the lesson.
Yeah, you're not giving yourself enough time to process what happened.
Absolutely not. And that, I mean, we know anxious preoccupieds do that. They are just the ultimate relationship hoppers. But a lot of people don't understand that boundaries set the rules for engagement. People are like, well, boundaries are for protection. Yes, they are for protection. They should not be used as a punishment.
Right.
But boundaries should also say there's rules for engaging with me that I'm going to hold tight, and I'm not going to back down on these rules of engagement. Yeah. Right? And so if you do this, I'm going to do that. You're free to do this.
Right.
You're free to do whatever you want to do. But no, if you do this, I'm doing that. Yeah. And one of the boundaries that I teach, which is a little controversial, I mean, but hey, controversy brings people to the table.
Right. Gets people thinking.
It does get people thinking. So one of the boundaries that I'm very, very, very adamant about is there's still something unsettled between us boundary. Because when you're with a dismissive avoidant or even a fearful that leans very, very dismissive, the people that are highly avoidant, let's just say that, they run away from conflict. So their partner literally can bring up anything and they will refuse to solve it or acknowledge it. Refuse accountability, refuse to a lot of times even have the discussion.
Yeah.
Right? They want to run away until it blows over and then come back around like nothing ever happened. So what I tell people to do, I'm like, the first level boundary is, hey, there's still something unsettled between us.
Yeah.
And so this comes back to the idea that we have both self-regulation and we have co-regulation in the relationship, and both are necessary. So the avoidant hyper self-regulates through suppression, through suppressing everything and distracting, right? But the anxious doesn't have very good self-regulation skills.
Right.
So they're feeling all their pain like super intensely. And they are begging for co-regulation. They're begging for their partner to come in and soothe them. So we have somebody that can't self-regulate, and then we have somebody that can't co-regulate when both are necessary. So what I tell people to do, I'm like, if your partner refuses co-regulation, that means that you are forced to only self-regulate, and that takes up a lot of psychological and emotional resources, okay? So in order to protect yourself, to care for yourself appropriately, to be able to have the self-regulation that's difficult for you, you need to tell your partner there's still something unsettled between us. And until you are willing to come to the table and settle it with me kindly and respectfully, I am going to have to turn away from meeting some of your needs in this relationship and place that energy on meeting my own needs because my nervous system requires it.
And that's why it's controversial.
And that's why it's controversial, right? You're like, oh, you're telling people to just, no, you can still be cordial with your partner.
Right.
You're just gonna, for example.
You're not advocating for stonewalling your
No,
partner.
you do not stonewall or give anybody the silent treatment.
Right.
No.
Right.
But what you're gonna do is, if you do your partner's laundry, you're going to maybe say, hey, I'm just letting you know until this is settled between us, I'm going to have to stop doing your laundry because I only have the capacity to do mine because I need to go to this yoga class. I need to be exercising right now to take care of my nervous system that is still very dysregulated from this conflict that is not settled.
Yeah.
Instead of, packing your lunch, I'm just letting you know, I'm not going to be doing that.
Earlier.
I'm going to go to bed earlier because my nervous system is so dysregulated from the lack of settlement of this conflict.
Yeah.
And so you are going to take what you were pouring into your partner to some degree and you're going to pour it into yourself. Otherwise, your nervous system is going to snap.
Right. That boiling pot of water.
That's right. And a lot of people are like, oh, that's punishment. I'm like, no, it's not. It's self-care.
Yeah, it's boundaries.
And you're setting the rules for re-engagement.
Right.
And those rules for re-engagement to the other person are abundantly clear what they have to do to shift the relationship back into the way that it was. And that's exerting your personal power. That's saying if you are unwilling to care for my heart and my nervous system, I'm the only one left to care for me.
Right.
So if I'm just pouring from you, eventually I'm pouring from an empty cup and I'm going to snap.
Yep.
And as somebody who has snapped, and by saying snapped, I mean debilitating migraines from an overtaxed nervous system from trauma. You know, that happened to me when I got to my lowest point. That happens.
Yeah.
People start getting chronic illnesses.
Yeah, I coached a few people. So for people in the dating phase, what advice would you give to those people, that maybe haven't been in these marriages for a long time? Because I feel like that's a scenario and that's advice for those people that have been married for a long time and trying to take their power back, maybe if they're dealing with an avoidant partner. So people in the dating phase, that have that person, because I see this a lot in answering your messages, that are really wishy-washy in terms of like, yeah, I really like you. And like, hey, sexy, what's up? Text. And then,
Then nothing for a while.
Right. And then you make like, approaches for, to get together and then they still blow you off. Like
No.
at what point do you, one, and I think it's probably different for everybody, of course, and based on multiple variables, but, at what point do you sort of draw the line in the sand? Because I never want to give the indication that like, yes, there are red flags, but sometimes in our society, we see everything as a red flag now. And so I want to make sure that it's not like we're encouraging people like, oh, red flag, I'm out, right? Like there has to be a way to gauge, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think it depends, one, on the severity of the behavior. Like if it's an abusive behavior, then the first time, out.
Right.
If it's a flaky behavior, like give it a couple times. Like if you see it more than once, it's probably a pattern.
Yeah.
But secure people are so repelled by that.
Yeah.
They're just not going to be like, oh, I guess I should keep giving them chances.
Yeah.
They're inherently turned off by that. That's where I tell people that there's this fundamental switch when you earn your security from being attracted to red flags and the fear, mistaking that for chemistry and continuing to attach versus getting the ick from the red flags.
Yeah.
I will never forget, after I felt like I earned my security, right before I met my husband, I did kind of start talking to this guy, and he started love bombing me, and I started getting icked out, and I told him, hey, you're coming on like a little too strong. And he's like, well, at least give me one date. And I was like, well, okay, maybe that's fair enough, right? I'll give you one date. I bought a new outfit for this date. It was all planned out. I mean, he was a fairly attractive guy. And then, do you know what he did? Like an hour before the date, he calls me and says, I actually still have feelings for my ex, and it wouldn't be fair to you to take you out. After like 2 weeks of pretty much love bombing me, I was like, and he's like, can you just like let me have this conversation with her and like really like officially end it, and then I'll take you on a date. I was like, hell to the no. Hell to the absolute no.
No.
Heck no. No.
Yeah.
Right? I was so icked out by that. I had like a disgusted feeling. It was so disrespectful.
Yeah.
And so like, you really think that I'm just going to sit here while you figure out, when I don't even barely know you, figure stuff out with your ex and then let you take me on a date?
All right. No, thanks. I'm good. I wish you will.
And then after that, he was blowing me up. And I was just like, block party. And never looked back. I never had another thought about it.
Right, of course.
Right?
Yeah.
And I mean, this guy was landed on thick and it was icking me out. And that's why I said, hey, you're coming on a little strong.
Yeah.
And that doesn't really feel that great to me.
God, there's always a gut feeling too. There's always a gut feeling. And if people could learn how to trust that more, that would save you a lot of time and a lot of heartache.
Right. But your attachment wounds will override that intuition. Every time. So I think we need to actually thank our sponsor at this point.
Yes.
Don't we?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So we need to thank our sponsor.
Cozy Earth.
Cozy Earth. Oh my gosh. Cozy Earth sheets.
Yes.
They are so freaking soft. I don't know how they do it.
I don't know I'm sure some of our listeners know that like fresh shaved legs, like clean sheets feeling. Like it's one of my favorite feelings in the world. And here's what I'll say about Cozy Earth sheets. You feel that way whether legs are shaved or whether the sheets are clean or not every single time.
Every single time.
Those sheets.
You are like sliding into a sanctuary.
It's true. And they're so luxurious. And I'll be honest, I've been sleeping so much better.
I have too.
So much better.
I have too. And that is absolute honesty.
Yeah.
And I think it's because they're, they don't like bunch up when you roll around.
No.
They stay really like straight and tight, and they grip really well to like the bed. They fit really well. And that's a pet peeve of mine.
Mine too.
When sheets do that.
Mine too.
I've washed them obviously several times. No pilling. They seem to be extremely durable.
Yeah.
In fact, I think they have a 10-year warranty.
No pilling.
10-year guarantee on that, which is a big deal. Yeah. That's a lot of washes, people.
And if you go to their website, cozyearth.com, you can check out all their products. I mean, they have the waffle comforters. I think that might be my next investment, actually.
And I want to try the socks.
The socks. So if you check at checkout, if you fill out the survey after checkout, after your purchase, use promo code LOVEDOG at purchase for 40% off. And then after checkout, if you fill out the survey, they're also going to send you a free pair of Cozy Earth socks. So please go check out our sponsor of the Love Dog podcast, Cozy Earth, at cozyearth.com. Use promo code LOVEDOG. And tell them that we sent you.
Yeah.
Thank you,
They are
Earth.
legit.
They are.
They're truly legit. So.
Yes. So anyway.
This has been a great episode.
It has. So for anybody who's looking to take their power back, please go visit Dr. Hensley at her website, thedatingdecoder.com. Check out all of her services. Again, a big shout out to Coach Elizabeth. She also is a coach who does one-on-ones and couples coaching. And then, of course, check out Dr. Hensley's hybrid group coaching program.
Yeah.
Which is probably her most popular service.
It is because it's really an all-inclusive experience.
That's
you get everything there.
You get her, you get the course. So yeah, go check that out. And until next time, peace, love, and perspective.